Thank you, Mike, for coming on the Small City Big podcast. We're really excited to have you here today. Appreciate you showing up and giving some insight into what it's like to be a farmer in Salmon Arm.
Good.
So welcome. I'd love to just start by asking you sort of what your journey was coming to Salmon Arm. So kind of maybe where you're born and raised and your journey here.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. So I grew up on a dairy farm in the Fraser Valley. We had a couple hundred cows there. It was a family farm, so I had cousins and everybody was involved. Grandparents, my parents were involved in the farm. So stayed there until I was late teens, and then I went and started working off farms and other industries and exploring and so on. And met my wife, which became my wife, and then went to school for agriculture, did a diploma in agricultural science or animal science, and then I went to university thinking I was going to become a vet or a nutritionist or something like that, and then realized once I got into the city and town and started taking science courses and so on that I just wanted to be a farmer and wanted to be a primary producer. I was really interested in the kind of potential of primary production, what we could do with agriculture. So left school, spent a little bit more time outside of agriculture, looked at a bunch of different options.
Yeah.
And the family had bought the property in Salmon Arm already, or one of what is the head farm.
Yeah.
And when Sarah and I got married, then we started looking at where we were going to settle down.
Yeah.
And the property next door, which was originally part of the same farm, came up for sale, and we said, well, if we get it, and we're going farming 100%, full-time farming, because we were kind of running it from a distance at the time. And so we obviously got it. We moved up to Salmon Arm and got started here.
Wow. So you were actually commuting here before you bought? Or running at a distance. What does that mean, running from a distance?
So I was working in the north, and so I was actually running the farm. We had 160 acres, and we were hired custom work guys to come in and do custom work. So they bring in, if we were cutting hay, we'd phone somebody and say, hey, would you come cut our hay fields? So they'd come in, cut, and then we'd hire somebody else to bale and so on. And so then I would be on a satellite phone in the middle of nowhere. Wow. This guy's trying to organize it. It just didn't work, it wasn't working.
No.
So it's difficult to run a farm when you can't actually see what's there.
What's going on?
Yeah, so it was interesting, but it became very clear very fast that you can't farm from a distance.
Yeah.
And we knew that was going to be the case anyway. We were so we got that other property. We moved here. There wasn't a lot here for us on the property. There's a few old buildings. We had no equipment there or anything, so we started building up equipment. And we're in the Salmon Valley, which is a really nice, very fertile, very, very productive, lots of options for what we could do. So it was kind of a bit of a clean slate on the property when we got started. So we started building up equipment, decided where we were going to go with the farm.
Yeah.
Got into quota. We had put in for a new producer program. So we got a bit of quota out of that for egg layers. They wanted us to go organic, which was a really good fit for us. And then we went from there.
Wow, that's amazing. I obviously didn't know that backstory of the satellite kind of situation. Yeah. And I can only imagine it would not be fun trying to run a farm not on it physically. Sure. So had you been to Salmon Arm before you invested in the property, or was it just sort of blind faith?
Yeah, not a lot, before, because the property was bought 2005. Okay. My cousin and I were the home farm was going to support another dairy to start here. So we were left their dairy property, and I was just in high school still, or just out of high school, I guess. And so then that plan kind of fell apart. Yeah. And I was working off farm, he was working off farm, and so the property just sat for 10 years. Right. And then we took over and started doing custom manure type thing. Yeah. And before we moved back.
Okay. Yeah. Can you talk just a little bit more about Lakeland, what you guys do, what you produce on the farm? I know you've got quite a long story there, but if you could kind of walk us through the beginning and sort of to where you are now, maybe?
Yeah. So like I said, it was a pretty clean slate when we got there. I was learning a lot at the time through school and general research about soil management, soil health, and looking for kind of a niche market that we could get into. And so organics was a good fit for us because we could get into grain production, which allowed us to use cover crops and do a better job of managing nutrients than just straight hay production. It was also a niche that we could get into if we were going to do like a food grade crop at a higher value, because even still, like without a ton of infrastructure, 160 acres is it, and then 240 would be difficult to make a really good living and support, the retirement of our parents and buying them out of the farm and so on. So we went into organic grain production to start off with. We built up our fleet of equipment, got the new producer program quota for egg production in 2018. So we built a small layer barn, like 4,500 birds. They wanted us to be organic. Organic was a really good fit for our farm and seemed to be where consumers were heading with kind of health conscious food choices and so on. So we got that started, but at the same time we were shipping our feed from the Lower Mainland, and we right away saw the opportunity to do our own feed because we were producing the grain already. Some of those ingredients were a lot of times going from like Alberta on Highway 1 right past us all the way down to the coast, getting milled into finished feed, sent back to the interior. So it was like an extra 800 kilometers, plus all the risk of fires and floods, which happened recently for BC. And so we built the feed mill in 2020, commercialized it in 2021. So now we feed our own birds. We also feed a handful of other organic, like commercial sized organic farms in the interior. And now we spread into kind of northern BC, and we ship to the Kootenays as well. And we got into bag feed, different species.
Amazing.
So that was a really good venture for us. Nobody was doing that in the interior when we started that. And so there was kind of this big wide open playing field.
Right.
And so we kind of quickly snapped up all of that business, and it's been growing really well for us. So there's a really good kind of marriage there because we needed it for our own production. It's a really good fit there. It gives us a lot of control of our diets, and we get some really good production benefits out of that.
Amazing.
And Salmon Arm was a great fit because we're right on Highway 1. So we've got great shipping lanes right past us out into the prairies, to all the other communities in southern BC. Feels like we're right in the center of everything here.
Yeah, for sure. That's a common story throughout our agriculture, food and beverage scene, has just been the access to the community. On that note, like Salmon Arm, what is it like doing business here in Salmon Arm? How has it been? You came from out of town. Can you just speak about like the relationships you've built here and maybe some of the organizations that have supported you?
It was a really good move. When we first got here, like an agricultural community, wherever you go is a farming community. And so I think it was like one of the first days that we got here, and there was a new vehicle in the driveway, on the place, and everybody knew that the property had sold. And so one of the neighbors, and he's like the designated guy, Keith Garvett's his name. He's now in his late 80s probably, but had lived on the street forever. Wheeled in the driveway and said, "Hey, how are you?" Like, welcome to the neighborhood kind of thing. And then another guy, and then another guy, and then another guy. And it was really good. So the farming community was really welcoming here. And there's lots of production land. There's several thousand acres there in the valley, plus all outskirts stuff and Broadview and so on. But a really good community down there. Really good bunch of people, very supportive. And we started from scratch, and not from scratch, but like we started with not a lot, I guess. In the valley there. And and we started into an industry that we didn't fully understand. And so there was a lot of learning curves, which was interesting. And lots of shared equipment, which still goes on. Like we've kind of built up our equipment fleet, and now we do a lot of custom work in the valley for other producers. So I would say that was the biggest thing that it surprised me and didn't surprise me. It was very welcome, I guess, that it was so supportive in there with the agricultural community and the other producers in the valley. So
that's awesome.
So that's probably it still has that small town feel. It still has the feeling of a farm community. Whereas you go into the Lower Mainland, and that has developed and commercialized, and so it's busy down there. there is still pockets of that for sure, but it's just bigger and faster.
Yeah.
And in Salmon Arm, it's a really good community of people.
Yeah, for sure. Is there any like organizations or anything that stand out that sort of support? And we talk a lot about business support on these podcasts because it's of interest to people, the listeners. Yeah. But yeah, is there any sort of like connections there that have supported you in your business?
Yeah, probably SAIDS, like the group we're sitting in your building right now. It has been really good, really welcoming. I think first blush with SAIDS was when we built the feed mill. We had to apply to the Agricultural Land Committee for a permit, for a non-farm use permit. So it's related, the feed mill is related to agriculture, but it's not like a farm.
Yeah.
And so because we thought that we might use more ingredients than what they allowed in our processing production, we had to get this permit. And so we had to go through this big application process, and going through SAIDS and the city of Salmon Arm was a big part of that. And so it's kind of where I got introduced to SAIDS, but have since gotten on the board with SAIDS. And that's been great to see. A lot of the board members are very, very gung-ho about the community, very supportive in a whole bunch of different ways of communicating.
Yeah.
So SAID's been like, and we've actually been working on starting up a farm association or group recently, which SAIDS has helped us a lot with, like, especially during parts of the season. 16, 18-hour days are pretty normal on the farm, and we get crushed by the administrative part of trying to set up a group and organizing that, and that's where SAIDS has helped us a lot. So I'd say SAIDS has been one of the highlights for sure.
Amazing. We love hearing that. Yeah. And you participate, you're on a group at the city, right? You sit on a board of the city?
Yeah, we are, the name escapes me now all of a sudden, but...
is it the agricultural... What is it?
It's the Agricultural Advisory Committee.
Right.
So I'm going to say that again, so it's not clear. So it's the Agricultural Advisory Committee is the group that I'm part of. And so we review a lot of stuff to do with the agricultural land reserve and applications to put stuff in or pull stuff out of and protect farmland or not protect it.
Right.
Sort of thing. So we review a bunch of those. But there's also a lot of discussion about things that happen in the community here. Like one of our big things now will be drainage, like improving drainage in the valley as we get these more kind of sudden rainfall events and big snow melts and stuff that our ditching and drainage needs maintenance. And so a lot of that stuff gets discussed at that group as well.
Right.
And so that's an advisory committee to the city. So if they would bring, a question or something like that to that group, we would provide feedback to the city for consideration.
Right. Okay. We didn't really discuss this before he came in, and so this is a little on the spot for you, but I am interested to hear sort of your perspective on where agriculture is going in Salmon Arm and sort of the future of food and all of that here. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I could talk for a long time about that. There's a huge potential for agriculture in Salmon Arm. Like, we have phenomenal soil in the valley, outside of the valley, all over the place. We have fantastic climate, even with some of the big events and stuff. And there's I guess I'd say there's like a general lack of infrastructure around, for not so much like roads and that, but more to do with like irrigation. Like we're pretty restricted with water, and there's a big potential to move a bunch of water. We live right beside a lake.
Yeah.
And I think the future of agriculture in Salmon Arm in one way is related to building out that infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested, and that's part of that agricultural group that we're starting to work on, to build out some things like drainage, to build out some water infrastructure out into the valley, because there's no limit to what we could produce out there. We've got really good support in Salmon Arm for businesses, for services. We're really close to everything here.
Yeah. It's a great location for sure. And like you said, it's still got that small city, feel. you still see people on the street who, you know, you're going to shake hands with, and they're the same people that you're going to go out and share equipment with later in the week or whatever. But we have all the amenities that you really need to support family, and, you know, you've got kids, obviously, you know, they're going to need to do their sports or their whatever, their school, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's got all of that, but it still has that small.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess in like agriculture in general, same thing. There's lots of challenges right now in agriculture, but there's also a huge amount of potential if you're willing to go after it. And technology being the biggest one, probably.
Yeah.
We expanded our layer barn this year, and in that 6-year period, so that when we first built it, we built it for 4,500 birds. We just expanded it to 9,000 birds.
Yeah.
And when we built it the first time, we knew we wanted to do the feed mill, so we built it kind of small and affordable. And we had good technology in there. We had good control. The ventilation system is one of the biggest things. But this time we did a lot of research, and we found systems that, like, the advancement in that short period was massive. And now our control system in the barn has our artificial intelligence in it.
Right.
So it is learning about our climate here and starting to control the climate in the barn related to that. And so it watches the daily kind of ebbs and flows of temperatures and humidities, and starts to predict what's coming, and starts to move the barn in that direction before it actually happens.
Wow.
We have heat capture technology in there, so we basically don't burn any gas anymore.
Amazing.
We have cooling pads, which is like in the barn. So when it gets to 25, 26 degrees, it starts turning on these swamp cooler pads that cool the barn down. So we have air conditioning in the layer barn.
Wow.
And so instead of this in the climate in the barn, now it's like this all the time. And that has a profound impact on the production and efficiency of the birds.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to start lengthening cycle times and getting better quality food and eggs. And I mean, that's one little example of what's changing in agriculture for technology. And our biggest challenge will be keeping up with this change.
Yeah.
And capitalizing the change, like having enough money to dump into these projects to keep up with the technology change, for sure.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that agriculture is, like a lot of things, is scaling and condensing. You're getting bigger producers and so on. So it's going to be a lot of it. To be competitive, you're really going to have to keep up with that technological change.
Yeah, I fully hear you on that it's just moving at an exponential rate that some people can't adopt, fast enough. But those that are willing to see the opportunity within it, I think are just experience such an expansion of what they are capable of. It's just like, oh, look at this, we can do this so much better, with all this new technology. So maybe we'll do a podcast again in like 2 years, and we'll hear what you have to say about everything. Is
the next thing that I can start talking about, but I probably should.
Well, we'll bring it back to more like community stuff. So actually, I do want to ask one more question though before we kind of get into more community stuff. Is do you have any advice for somebody who's in your sector of work, in the agricultural sector? Do you have any advice for somebody coming to Salmon Arm and starting a business, specifically in Salmon Arm?
There's a lot of different things you could say, but I guess I'm like related to this discussion is just don't be afraid to get involved in the community. Don't be afraid to get out and meet people and start asking questions. And it is a really supportive community. The city, the council, the different groups, the communities like your groups like this, are really supportive of business, and they want to see Salmon Arm thrive. And we've got a really good group. But like so many times, like you can have a group with a mandate, but it doesn't fulfill that. It's a lot about the people that are involved. And right now is a great time because there's a lot of people that are pushing hard for business support right now in Salmon Arm. So I would say come in, start meeting people as fast as possible, get involved in community events, and there's no lack of those.
No, I mean, there's always something. This morning I was overhearing from my office this interaction between two different organizations, and I was, what did you do this weekend? Well, what did you do? Oh, I missed out on that. How do we do it all? There's just every weekend, every week, there's something really amazing happening, whether it's live music or a food event or a tasting or an opening. Like there's always something to do. So
For sure.
so on that note, with, beyond business, what does Mike do for fun in Salmon Arm? What does Salmon Arm offer you?
For the last 7 years, we haven't done a lot. We're very tied to the farm, but it's getting better. But we have young kids. So I have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old boy, and they're busy. So a lot of our free time is related to kid stuff. So we got a fall player right now. He just had a tournament in town all weekend. That was great. We do, when we get a chance, there's lots of camping. That's one of our favorites. Is
Nice.
Harold Park is if I had to pick a gem, Harold Park's probably a gem for us because it's so close that you can race back to the farm if something goes wrong. But it's a great family-oriented campground.
Yeah.
Bike paths, right on the
Falls.
lake, great beach, trails all over the place. Yeah, just a few minutes from town. Great water. Like if you want to get out on the boat, there's a boat launch there.
Yeah.
That is probably the best one.
Yeah.
But yeah, camping, outdoor stuff. We are an outdoor family, so if we get a chance, we will take off into the bush. We will. And then lots of stuff around the farm and the farming community and that too. Like we'll go to the neighbor's place and do a cookout or something like that. And
Oh, that's always fun.
yeah,
And you guys have Mount Ida Hall really close to you. There's always something going on there, it feels like.
yeah, they've gotten quite busy. So Mount Ida Hall was the community hall for the valley. There it was actually on our property for when we first got it,
Oh, okay.
and it hadn't been taken care of when we got it. We didn't do any better, to be honest. Like the first few years, because we weren't here, we didn't do anything with it. So it was kind of falling down. And then the neighbor bought it for $1 off of us and rolled it across telephone poles across the field up over the road onto his property, and then completely rebuilt it and put a commercial kitchen in it.
Yeah.
And everything. And then he sold it to the current owners, which are good friends of ours now, Chris and Cal Garrett, and they hold different events and things in the hall there, and it's a great spot.
Yeah.
Really nice building.
It's a beautiful building. I had no idea that was how that trip. Like I grew up, driving around the corner, and there was the old hall, and then it just wasn't there anymore. And then I heard about Mount Ida Hall, but I didn't actually understand that the infrastructure moved across the road using telephone poles.
Yeah.
Literally roll it.
The frame with the footings across the field like that. Yeah, and so they host all kinds of events there.
That's awesome. I love that. I love knowing that story. Okay. We have this sort of fun way to sort of wrap up our podcasts. And so it's called Rapid Fire. So I have a series of questions that I'd love for you to answer. So we'll start with, Salmon Arm has a tagline. It's called Small City, Big Ideas. If you were to rename the city tagline, it would be Small City, Big...
I think it would have to be big food, I guess. Yeah, Salmon Arm produces a lot of food of all different kinds. We've got a really good group of whether it's big or small. We've got a great farmers market. We've got Zest producing a lot of food now. So I would say food, and that will only grow for sure.
I love that. Okay, Mike, why did the chicken cross the road?
My 5-year-old Lucas always gives me this, and he asks me this, and then he gives, and so I have to say why, even though I've answered it 1,000 times, but it's because Lakeland Feeds was on the other side.
I love that he continues to ask. It's almost like, when you have that answer, but you just love the answer so much. It's like, it's my home. That's why the chicken crossed the road. Okay, in Salmon Arm, we talk about commute times. So Salmon Arm has one of the shortest commute times in the province. It's basically 10 minutes to anywhere. I don't know what your commute from home to, the grocery store in town is, but what's your shortest commute of the day?
Well, the barn and the feed mills, so my favorite commute, can I chime in?
Yeah,
This is my favorite commute of the day.
Okay.
So I wake up, I'm an early riser. I wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I walk from my house down to the chicken barn, and we have a mile of frontage road there.
Yeah.
So I walk a mile from one side to the other side of the farm, and it's right underneath Mount Ida. And spring mornings like this morning was amazing, because there's no traffic on the roads yet.
Yeah.
and it's a nice flat straight road. I walk by all our fields,
Yeah.
well, not all, but a bunch of our fields, and look back at Mount Ida, and like the sun's coming up and the chicken barn's down there and everything, and then I go for a walk through the barn,
Yeah.
check everybody, and then walk back home and have breakfast with the kids. So that's my favorite walk.
That's amazing. Yeah, your favorite commute. Maybe I should be changing that to what is your favorite commute, because that is amazing. And that's like, I mean, Mount Ida is such a staple of Salmon Arm. You know, it's like you can see it from everywhere. There's different views of it, obviously. Like your view is going to be different. I live on Mount Ida, but on Foothill, like at the corner of Shuswap and Foothill. So it's like a bit of a different view, but it's just this beautiful backdrop to our community. And so I'm going to start waking up at 4:30 in the morning and walking.
Well, I'll meet you at the corner.
Yeah, there you go.
So what's your favorite commute?
My favorite commute, my favorite commute. Oh. I think it's to my mom's house. So we co-share land. We have an acre.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so I walk with my cup of tea and I sit on my mom's deck in the morning sometimes, or like it's mostly on the weekends. I'll go and I'll sit with her, and we're across from a big piece of agricultural land, and so it's beautiful. There's cows, you know, I can see the lake. It's really gorgeous.
And that's almost like right in town as well.
It's almost right in town.
On the edge of town. So agriculture is not far away.
No, I mean, well, it's right there. It's literally right across the street from me. I talked to Becky and Will, who live just on the street from me as well. And it's like, if you forget your eggs, somebody's got eggs on the street. You know, like I can go literally, I think it's probably 25 steps, and I have meat that I can buy from a freezer from a local producer there. And like, it's just, I've got a big garden in the back. So the whole food, the small city, big food totally resonates with me because we really love our garden and, you know, all of that. But yeah, that's probably my favorite commute. And my shortest is to this building. So it's literally like, it's 1 kilometer from work to home. So board meeting 7:30. In all honesty, I leave my house at 7:27. So now you know.
So the last question for you, what's your gem in Salmon Arm?
Oh my goodness. My gem in Salmon Arm. You know, I'm going to be selfish and say it's my house. Like, I live beside a forest across from, you know, these farms. Mount Ida is my backdrop. I have great neighbors. I think everyone has great neighbors in Salmon Arm, but I have great neighbors. And I have a lot of, you know, like this big garden, and I've got lots of plants. So it's really like a sanctuary. So sitting in my gazebo with a cup of tea in the morning, that's when nobody's up. And I'm a bit of an early riser, not so much. I'm more like clock 36. Yeah. But 6 o'clock with a cup of tea in my hand in my gazebo is pretty much the gem of Salmon Arm. Yeah. Yeah. And then if I were to say other like traditional, it's probably the peak at Mount Ida, or not Mount Ida, Little Mountain. When you get the view of the lake of Salmon Arm Bay. Oh, yeah. You know, from the top. I love doing that. I'll do that any day of the week. Like, happy to do that. I take my dog, and it's beautiful. So, do you want to give a shout out to any local business people or heroes in town, or?
Probably, what is it? I think it's the Salmon Arm Agricultural Association they've got a new board, and they're kind of restarting the fair.
Oh, okay.
We haven't gotten involved, but I know a whole bunch of local businesses have. Yeah. And they're rebuilding the fairgrounds, and they're looking at that event and kind of reinvigorating that. So hope those guys are really successful.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. I love hearing that. Okay, I have one more question. I have 2 more questions. If you had to pick one mode of transportation, car or tractor, what would you choose?
Oh. Well, yeah, tractor, I guess. Yeah. I'd like to drop I haven't done it yet, but I haven't started dropping the kids off at school with the tractor. They go to Salmon Arm West because it's like 2 miles from the house. And so I asked Eric, and he said no, because he doesn't want to cause a scene. He's but I'm going to do it one day.
You should just pick them up. And, all right, come on, boys. That's really funny. Okay, and my last question for you is, what's your favorite season in Salmon Arm?
It's a toss-up between spring and fall. Spring here is awesome, and like this spring's got a days. It's a lot of fun. Spring is so good. Like the snow leaves, and things start turning green here. And then we get into our busy season. Obviously, planting is usually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I really like spring. And then I really like fall. Like, I guess it's fall. Fall's probably my favorite. The colors around here in the fall, the way that it smells around here in fall is awesome. And harvest is done. For us, like, those seasons kind of usually, unless we got a building project, the season starts to wind down.
Right.
And we get to take a breath and relax and stuff.
So it's really funny. So many people had said fall. Like, and not for those reasons, but like for their own reasons. But fall seems to be everybody's favorite, and it's mine as well. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a good one for sure.
Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate the insight, learning a little bit more about your business, learning about why you came here. That was really fun. And Mount Ida Hall, moving it, telephone poles, that's probably my biggest aha takeaway of like, oh, that's so cool. The history part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you. We really appreciate it.
You got some glad you're organizing this stuff.